Dom, welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you felt that you would be quite happy to come and have a chat about the book. So I'd love to start by saying thank you, firstly, because when I started writing the book, I didn't really know that I was writing a book. I was kind of started off by kind of writing a memo to myself. I felt like I got my health into a really good place early in the year, and it's probably the best I've ever had my health from really focusing on it. And I kind of just started jotting it down. These are the things, and then over time it kind of turned. I was like, is this more? I don't know what this is. I didn't set out to do it, and then I thought, okay, I'm gonna kind of beat my demons here by sharing little bits. And you were the first victim, if you will, that I started sharing it, and I started getting some positive feedback, which kind of motivated me to keep going. But yeah, just to start with, I want to say thank you, because you know your influence really helped me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, and it's been a journey for me as well. So reading the book and learning from you has also been a big journey for me. So it's been a joint thing, I suggest. So yeah.
Well, and that's interesting because I have shared the book with a number of people, mainly friends and family, and I kind of wrote the book as a target audience of me 20 years ago. That's kind of what.
So not me.
Yeah, not really. not an experienced CEO who's very accomplished. And that's what I found interesting, is that some of the people that I've shared it with, they weren't my target audience in my mind. And so when you gave me feedback, that was like a real honor in some respects.
Really?
That you were kind of like feeding back, and someone as experienced as you are and accomplished as you are in business, to still give feedback and go, actually, I've learned some stuff here.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah. Thank you for bringing me in on your journey on putting this together. I think for me it was some of it. So I was at some of the places that the book describes already. So some of it's validation, which is always comforting, and some of it really helped me to think in slightly different ways. And I think the most important thing for me taking away was actually putting things into action. So actually, like taking some of the ideas that I thought were good ideas, or some of them we can talk about journaling. Some of them I was quite pessimistic about, but it motivated me, the book and speaking with you, to actually commit to doing some of these things for myself, for my own well-being. So yeah, it's a bit of validation, but also a huge amount of action. I've put some real significant changes into my lifestyle since working with you and reading the book. So yeah, it's been great.
That's amazing. It's amazing to hear that. And also, you were the first person to buy the book as well. So as soon as it went live,
I wanted that.
Within about 4 seconds, you'd written back and said, you bought the book. So what did you feel? So you said there were some changes. So what were those? What are those changes? What are those things that you've kind of implemented? How did you interpret some of the messages?
Yeah. So I think the big kind of foundational thing was journaling. And it's probably the thing I was most pessimistic about. I tried before. I've been meditating for a long time. And, one of the ideas around meditation is, gratitude and that's kind of part of journaling. So I tried that before and failed. And I was convinced by speaking with you and reading the book that that's something I should explore more. And I think that's been really transformational for me. And it sounds almost silly, but I guess that is the essence of journaling, is just by writing things down, you put things permanently in a place, and then being able to see patterns and what repeats gives you the ability to take action on the things that you're noticing in yourself. And that's led on to all sorts of things. Like, I give an example. So, one of the things that kept coming up on things that I was grateful for is being able to, we both live, kind of in the countryside. Being able to walk in the countryside gives me a lot of pleasure, just at a very simple level. So why don't I work that into my day? If I'm feeling my stress is rising, or just part of a habit, which is where I am now. It's like, do your steps, and also, being outdoors is something that gave me a lot of pleasure. I knew it, but I hadn't identified that as a thing that I could actually, put into action every day. And now I do a walk every day pretty much, as well as my journaling. So I do a journaling, and I'll go and take my steps. It's made me look at my finances, which you may think, as the CEO with grey hair at the end of the table, doesn't need to worry about that. But actually, it's just given me some reminders on good practice, and made me take actions. It's the things that I always think that you can have your to-do list, and the thing at the bottom, the hard thing, you kind of never get to. Whereas this has helped me kind of, by journaling and by thinking through the actions and the tools in the books, it's made me put those things up to the top. And I feel so much better for it. I really do. Like some of the things that are hard, particularly, around finance things, have got to the top. And now I'm dealing with them, and it's just a weight. It's a weight off. I wouldn't say I'm perfect on it yet. Still more improvements to go, but it's now there, and I'm doing something about it. So, the thing that I was most pessimistic about has been the most impactful. And I enjoyed everything in there. I mean, some of the things I was kind of already there in some respects, like the fitness thing. Already have been doing that for some time, 2-3 years, and reading it, reaffirming how important it is, and thinking of that as the balance across all the things that you cover, has been really good for me.
When you think about journaling, because I was pessimistic about journaling before as well, and when I started journaling, I would probably say I was horrible at it. But it's almost, I go back and I make a statement in the book to say don't go back and read your journals, but it's completely your choice whether you want to do that or not do that. I have gone back to read some of my very early ones, and they were very dark, because I was in a dark place at the time, and I was trying to find, the light. I was trying to get better. I was just trying to feel better, I suppose.
Yep.
Why do you feel that you were pessimistic to it initially, or what was the mindset that you had prior?
So I tried previously, but really basic. Actually, it's the book you recommended that put a structure around it, and having the structure and the exercises in there were really beneficial. I still think about some of them now, like the stress bucket is the one I can bring to mind. And it's actually by examining that and doing those exercises, you can start to think much more clearly about, actually, these things are positive. Why not build more of them in, rather than make it, it's a nice thing you do when you do it. Actually think about building that into your daily routine. I tried kind of doing the three things you're grateful for, like at the end of the day. I just never stuck to it. Whereas the journal book, and having the framework around it, thinking of it more holistically as part of an overall approach to wellness, has really made it stick. And also seeing the actions that come from that, you actually see the change then that comes in from repeatedly, it's writing down what 3 things are you going to do today. I do go back to the day before. So every day when I look at my journal, I look back at the day before, and some of it's almost like a to-do list, but by having it like just 3 things that you want to do today, some of them can be like practical things, some of them can be, approach this thing in a different way. I always go back one day and then see to make sure I've done those things, because if I don't, then you've got that accountability. And then it's a really positive thing to do, to think about what you're grateful for. I know everyone says that, but actually doing that repeatedly has a real big impact, because then you can start to examine and think about how you build that into your day.
So the journal that I recommended was Mind Journals.
That's the one, yeah.
Mind Journals. And that's a specific journal for men.
Mm-hmm.
My sister bought it for me last Christmas, I'm going to say. And again, I was pessimistic towards it. I'd done some journaling before, but I think why that book is different, especially for men, and I know there are specific female, women-led journals as well, which I kind of mentioned in the book, but it's because if you just have a blank page, a lot of guys just won't know what to write.
Yeah.
And because it asks you quite specific questions and gives you tick box as well, which is just how do you feel? Hopeful, happy, sad, depressed, whatever. Like you just, and it's really interesting because what I found through journaling was that the way I felt that day was a direct result of what I did the day before. So if I trained the day before and had a healthy, nutrient-dense, just clean diet, I didn't drink sugar, I didn't drink alcohol, then I felt better the next day. I'd had a good night's sleep, I'd felt better. If I had woken and I was a bit hungover, I'd had a rubbish diet, then I noticed that I was quite often going, I feel a bit lost, a bit depressed, a bit sad. That at a really basic level gave me quite a good amount of insight, which was, the way I feel is directly impacted by the things I've done in the last day or the last couple of days. It's not, and the interesting thing, especially in our career, when we work in sales, we're always chasing the number. I get the number, I earn the money, I feel the thing. That never happens. So it's really interesting to see that when you have the perspective of journaling, that it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with success. It's got nothing to do with money. It's fully down to what did you consume? What did you do? Did you train? Did you have movement? And how do you feel the next day? I think that was one of the most profound things that I found on Mind Journal. What would you say? So when you approach journaling, do you go in with an intention? Do you just write? What do you do? You write a list? How do you approach it?
Great question. So, well, I use the frameworks in Mind Journal, which helps at least kick you off and get you into a place where you're becoming consistent and being able to then examine what's happening over time. What I also like to do is kind of deep dive on things. So like you're saying, like what happens in that day is quite often what's happened in the day or days before that. And it could be, all sorts of things. I added sleep as a thing to mine. I know everyone seems to have like monitors for sleeping and things like that nowadays. I don't use that. I'll wake up in the morning and I'll give myself a rating out of 5 for how good my sleep was. And then I can look at that because I noticed from journaling that my mood was massively impacted by sleep. And I think there's a lot of people have become more kind of thoughtful about sleep. But it was evidence based on me. So I now prioritize sleep more and I think about the things that impact the sleep. So that's one thing I do. The other thing is I'll deep dive on things. The example I'm thinking of is like I will have had an argument with my wife. Of course, I never argue with my wife, but on the very rare occasions that does happen, it's quite interesting to examine it and think, okay, so could you have acted differently? Could you have taken a different approach here? And I find by writing that down, I can get my thoughts really out and then you can really kind of deep dive and examine them and think about, well, okay, could you have done something different? Do you feel good after that? Could you have done something different? What led up to that? Can you take a different path in the future? So yeah, anything like that, I find really helpful to write down and dive into it. So
what have you learned from that? So if you've had, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the conversation with your wife, but it could be you're in business, you've got your personal relationships, all those sorts of things, but you're examining the response to the situation and you're journaling about it, and also adding in meditation as well, which we'll come on to. So what is it about writing it down and reflecting on the moment? What's that giving you? How are you then able to take that moment and then kind of alter your behavior? What do you think that's giving you at that moment? It's kind of, you're kind of examining it.
Yeah.
You're just reflecting on the moment.
It's absolutely that. And you by writing it down, you take the emotion out of it. Because that's the thing that drives almost all the things where I feel like I could have done better is the emotion of that. So if I'd have actually examined really what was happening in that situation, I wouldn't have reacted perhaps in the way I want to. And you could use a work example as well, right? To try and be, in my position, one of the big things that I try to do is remain calm, because people want to see leaders being calm, and thoughtful. You don't want to work for someone who isn't. So you can look at the situation and you can break it down. You can say how you felt at that moment in time, what led up to it, how you feel like you could do things differently by taking the emotion out. So I find that really, really helpful.
That's interesting. So what do you feel? I notice a real interesting link, or not a link, it's a dissociation. So, and what I mean by this, so when you journal and you write something down, I've noticed that I have a certain tone of voice, right? And it's kind of like calm, consistent, pragmatic.
Yeah.
Could write a list, not emotional. And how do you reconcile that with the thoughts in your mind? Because I feel like there are different personalities here. So when you think about what's going on in your mind, the thoughts you're having, and how you journal, what's the link or dissociation between those two?
Yeah, different people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that for me, that's about the emotion in the moment. The adrenaline, probably, if you're in a situation. So, yeah, when you're not in that moment, you can take that emotion away, and you can be the person that you want to be on reflection, rather than perhaps the person you were at that moment. So yeah, that's how I think about it. And I know you've got some thoughts around like the different people that you are. So yeah, for me, it's taking that emotion away, and you can be the person that you really would have liked to have been in that moment if you reflect on it, which is, for me, it's different. It's definitely different.
I love that. That's really interesting. And then, so the third part of that is who you are when you speak, which is the other personality. So if you connect all three, because when I was having my darkest moments, they were all completely disconnected. The way I'd speak to someone was always positive and polite and all those sorts of things and optimistic.
Yeah.
But I was really suppressing how I felt.
Yeah.
Like, so I really wanted to go, I'm falling to pieces here, but I didn't want to put that on someone else or burden someone else. The thoughts in my head were crazy, negative, they were all over the place, racing away. But when I wrote down, it was calm, pragmatic, consistent. I was like, oh, I like this person.
Yep.
This person's great.
Yep.
This is me.
Yep.
This person's not me, and this person's suppressing everything. So when you and this is the interesting reflection that you're having about, oh, actually, I can approach things differently. So the journaling is what brings it together. So what do you feel about who you were or who you are when you speak compared to who you are when you journal?
Yeah, it can be very reactionary.
Yeah.
And run away with things in a way which, I regret later. So you can be, I can be much more less thoughtful in the moment, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things I find interesting about meditation as well. And what's been really useful for me around journaling is actually trying to it's very difficult to change those kind of behaviors without having the ability to write them down and dive into them. And that's really what I get from journaling. So can you make a change just of thinking, oh, you shouldn't do that again, rather than let's have an examination of exactly what was happening there, take the emotion out, be the person that you would like to be on paper, and just some of it's just letting your mind wander on the page so you can get it all out and then have an examination of it. So it's been very, very impactful.
And prior to that, you were already meditating.
Yep.
And I remember asking you in the gym one day, I said, do you meditate? And I think you said every day for the last 400 and something days.
I did have a big count at one point. I think I was up to 500 or 600 days in a row.
It's funny because about 10 years ago, I was at a work conference, something, I can't remember where it was now, but I can kind of remember the kind of the context and the image. And I remember these people were sat down and they said, what's the most profound thing that's personal development thing or whatever it was. And they said, every person on the panel said meditating. I thought, what a load of rubbish. I was like, honestly, what a load. I went to the bar and got another drink, and I just thought, I can't get on board with this at all.
Yeah.
And here I am 10 years later, and I'm telling people you should really meditate, and it is probably the best moment of your day, possibly. Why did you start meditating, and what do you find that's given you?
So I find meditation fascinating. just as a practice, as an exercise, as a discipline. I find the ability to, and I want to say the word control, but it's not really about control. The ability to be aware of your mind and how you can work with it, I find absolutely fascinating and incredibly hard. So I use Mindspace for meditation, which has been massive for me. It was a real help in terms of guiding and keeping it fresh as well. But yeah, the actual art of thinking about your thinking and how destructive your mind can be if you're not thinking about how to work with it. I just find the practice of that and the mastery of it. I mean, I must be 4 or 5 years into meditating every day, pretty much. And I still feel like I'm at the beginning of actually, any level of mastery of that. And I think the goal, the upside of being able to work with your mind is so powerful that it's worth investing. I do 10 minutes a day every morning. That 10 minutes is a minor amount of time for the benefit that I get already from it, and can see a lot more benefit in the future. So yeah, I'm an absolute real supporter, fan, advocate of meditation, but also it's a hard one to get people on board with. Like if you are, I certainly, I'm 46, and I got to it when I was 40, so it's a hard one to get. Certainly, I think younger people into it. I tried with my children with the app, which has a bit of gamification, so it makes it a bit more kind of interesting. And yeah, they're not ready for it, which is a shame because you could, if you started when you were young, you could get so much benefit as you get older. But probably it's a similar thing with journaling, I guess. Back to your very early point, I guess I'm just a late developer on these things.
Well, I think we were both. It's interesting because we both picked these up at very similar times in our life.
Yeah.
So if I think I'm going to guess I started meditation and journaling at similar times about 2 or 3 years ago. So just turning 40. So I think maybe it's a point within your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you become more introspective. Maybe you don't know. I do. When I wrote the book, it was really a message to me 25 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I think the outcome, I might still be in exactly the same place today, but I think I would have enjoyed the journey. If I think I would have been more intentional about a lot of the things I was doing. I definitely would have had a lot less destructive thoughts, feelings, moments. I definitely would have drank less. I definitely would have done less drugs. I definitely would have done less of all of those things if I kind of had more of a control or power of my mind and I didn't react to things so much, didn't take so many things so personally. Like I can't even begin to explain the incredible benefits of these type of self-care routines, and I just think so many people don't do it. And actually, when I started meditation and journaling, it was the first time. It wasn't straight away. It did take time. I don't know whether it was straight away, 6 months later. I can't remember now, but I remember thinking, I'm really in a nice routine doing this, and this is the first time I really look forward or I enjoy being me. As in, when I sit down and I meditate and I think about things, and I think, because I like to do a visual meditation and I like to kind of go on a bit of a trance trip, like think about the future or think about this thing and go on a bit of a journey with it. I'm like, it's a bit self-indulgent. I really enjoy it. And so it's worth getting up early to go and do.
Yeah.
And then it starts to guide, well, what do I want the rest of my life to be like then? If I'm kind of healing and I'm calm and I'm consistent, what's available to me? What's possible?
Yeah.
And then later in the day, I found then writing things down into the journal became like my life plan or the business plan or whatever was coming to mind. So you kind of have these ideas, this is the future, this is the life that I want to have in X many years.
Yeah.
But then the journal became like, these are the things I need to do today. These are the things I'm doing tomorrow. This is how I'm feeling. This is what happened. This is the reflective moments. I think they work beautifully together.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you think they complement each other?
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, it's a way. So meditation for me gives me more space for doing thinking, planning. That's thinking about the future in a more rational way and less busy. So meditation almost gives you the foundation for that thinking. Then the journal gives you the structure for solidifying that into a plan. So I think you're absolutely right that you've got the creating a space in your mind that can be that can have more available space to be rational and calm and less busy, and then the writing the journal is the way for me for solidifying that into an actual plan and taking the actions and holding yourself accountable. If you've written something down and you can look back on it, it's like, well, you said you would do that yesterday, or I'm seeing this repeating thing. This thing is the thing that causes you stress. You can't hide from it forever if you continue to write it down. So you can actually, more for me, it's about actually taking positive constructive action on it. So the meditation is the space, and then the journal is the accountability, perhaps. Both have been real significant for me. I mean, I've been journaling since we kind of kicked this off, which is probably 4 months, 4 or 5 months now, and I've journaled every day. Maybe missed a couple when I've been traveling, but journal pretty much every day. And I've started evolving the way I journal to work more to how I think about and what makes an impact on my daily well-being. The meditation gives you almost the space and the way to work with your mind in a less busy way to bring that into action.
Are you lost in your shit? I know I have been throughout my life, and I have found ways to get myself less lost in my shit. I started writing this down and it turned into a book. I shared it with friends and family and they said, you need to turn this into a book. So this has become a personal guide, a memo to myself to help me get out of my inner struggles and become a better version of me. And this might help you. So I wrote it all down, and it covers the mind, the body, covers your money and investments, and it covers your soul. Unlocking what it is that you want from this one great life that you have, and your escape. How do you get to that life? It's all included in here. It's available from Amazon. Enjoy. How do you feel journaling, meditation has impacted your well-being?
Oh, massive. Absolutely massive. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that I've come from any kind of very bad place. No, certainly, there's no real trauma in my background. But I think even without that, you have dark moments and sometimes you get lost, right? Which is a great name for a book. And over the last 6 months, I've been much more focused on dealing with things that are taking real action on things that are a problem that I would always wanted to solve but haven't got round to. So that's accountability has been massive. And then thinking more almost selfishly really about what makes me feel better, what improves my well-being. So the walks that are just, I know everyone talks about their 10,000 steps and all this kind of stuff, but actually for me it's not about the steps. It's about getting out, getting some daylight, getting some fresh air. Very lucky to live out in the countryside, and I get a huge amount of joy just from being in that environment. So all right, do it every day, make time for it. Whereas previous I would have just carried on working. So that has been a real change and more of a focus on making time for those activities that give you something that improve your well-being. So yeah, been big journey for me. Been doing lots of other stuff like the gym and training on that. That gives me a lot of focus. Working towards very amateur competitions, but yeah, that gives me a lot of focus as well. So yeah, I feel good because I now have more tools more realization on how they impact my well-being. So yeah, I feel pretty good right now.
We'll definitely come on to the strength piece in a second, but before we do, let's talk about walking. So
Yes.
the three things that I mentioned in the book and what I talk at length about is journaling, meditation, and walking. And I think they all work together. They all complement each other. So were you walking before you read the book, or what was your view on walking? I know we share the same personal trainer in James, and James recommended to me about 2 years ago to start walking instead of doing cardio.
Yeah.
I was doing cardio, but he was just like, right, I want you to just focus on walking. And I'd be on it again. I thought, what a load of rubbish. This is why you pay coaches, right? Because they know something that you don't.
Yep.
And when you start putting things into practice, I don't think I would have had the realization of walking is completely transformational, done consistently. But again, it would have been those things which was, I'll just work instead. I'll just work through the day. Doesn't it's not important. But when you start to prioritize walking, coupled with the other things, or just on its own, it's been a huge impact to me. I'll talk about that in a second. But what? So did you walk before, and what's the impact of walking?
So we have a dog, so I would walk the dog, which I love doing. But that would be at the weekend. So I would walk the dog at the weekend. What your book has helped me to put in place is the realization that actually it's an incredibly good thing for your mental well-being, as well as you get a benefit of the physical doing the exercise, as well as in my case, I'm lucky enough to be out, in the countryside, in the woods, or in a field, where you can be really meditative in your walking. So yeah, I'm now at the point where I kind of get upset if I don't go for a walk every day. So I'm pretty consistent with it. I will find a time to go out, or I actually it's more than that. Now I build time to do that. So it might be before the day started, if you like, but yeah, always do at least half an hour of walking, fresh air. It sounds so obvious, but if you don't get into the pattern and you're not thinking almost about it and about the benefit you get from it, you need to build it in. So yeah, I've been, and it was the book that started that for me, 100%. I would sometimes, working from home, get up in the morning, maybe go to the gym, get back from the gym and sit in my office chair for 8-10 hours and not think about anything other than just sitting there and working. Whereas now I know I'll always build in a walk, and I'm also quite a big believer in daylight having a real positive impact on you. Ideally getting that first thing in the morning, but it's the sun comes up much later now, which makes it more difficult. So yeah, so sometimes it's like a lunch walk or something now, but yeah, absolutely tremendous in terms of the impact, and it's now a habit, a part of the routine.
Have you ever, since in the last few months or so, monitored or written down how you feel before a walk and how you feel after the walk?
No.
Or have you kind of consciously monitored that in any way?
No, maybe I'll put that in my journal.
I did that this morning, and we all get a bit lost in our shit, or feel a bit down, or feel a bit low. But I came into today just feeling a bit like I'm feeling a little bit off because I've not been so clean on my diet for the last few days, and I had a couple of glasses of wine last night, which is very rare for me. I don't do it a lot, but it's Christmas and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I came in feeling a little bit lost and a bit low, and I thought I'm gonna journal. So I journaled 10 minutes or so, just wrote everything down. Went for a walk, 20 minutes, half an hour, came back, and the words which were slightly negative turned into optimistic, hopeful, back in the room, feeling better. Like, it's pretty transformational. It's a simple thing to do. Go outside for 20 minutes and go for a walk. No headphones, just walk and see what happens. You come back positive.
Yeah.
You always come back. There's not been one time that I haven't gone out for, but even if it's 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever, sometimes you just do the whole hour or 110 or 10,000 steps. The longer you do, the better you come back feeling. There's no question. Like, you always feel better. What do you think that impact? How do you think that impacts how you show up? How do you, like, also with your teams, the people you lead? What are the words, or what the moods change? How do you feel differently?
So I will try that as an exercise, like before and after. So I think that's a great way of capturing that. How do I feel? Always better. Right, always better. Daylight, fresh air, nature, seeing different things. That for me is a meditation in itself. So I always come back clearer, uplifted. And also you get that, you've just done a bit of exercise. It's not intense, but it's still exercise. So you get those natural kind of endorphins from even doing the exercise that it is. So yeah, I've never really thought about it in before and after. I just know that I feel very positive when I'm doing it, and therefore it should be part of the routine that I think of to, make myself the best I can be in that day.
Do you ever have resistance? Do you ever does part of your mind go, stay at work?
Yeah,
You've got to do this.
Always.
Do you find it's quite an intentional thing? You've got to push yourself to get out there.
It's become routine for me now.
Right.
So I don't and I have to make it routine. Otherwise, I will always default to I just need to stay and work and be available for other people. So I purposefully make it part of my routine, like the meditation. So as soon as I wake up, first thing I do is meditate, because then you've done it. Similar thing with the gym. I'm a morning gym person, because if I leave it till the afternoon, I'll find a reason not to do it. And I also love the feeling of having achieved something so early, and then you can go into your work day with something really positive. And the same with walk. I try to get my walk in the morning. So I try to sound like a lunatic. I try to meditate first, go to the gym, and I was doing walk and then gym, but now the sun comes up later, so I'll go to the gym and then I'll have a walk before I set my day off. So I have to start pretty early to get that done, but then I'm totally up for the day in the best possible mindset that I can be, ready to be the best me for my team during the day. So yeah, that's kind of, and I just need to make it routine. I'm yet to get into feeling at a stressful point during the day where I should take myself away and go for a walk. That's something that I do want to do, because it says in the book, and you recommend it, I would like to get into that. That may be something I should put in my journal to make sure I do it. But yeah, so I've not got to that point yet, but I always have a walk because I know it makes me a better person.
So agreed. So I'm in the same place. I have almost an identical morning routine. We've probably chatted about this in the gym loads of times. So first, and I think the thing is, what we're talking about here is setting an intention. But this is the routine.
Yeah.
And the routine is wake up, meditate. And for me, that's we probably have a very similar routine in that respect. So I think that's probably the one takeaway. Do it first thing. Then obviously we both go to the gym, and then later in the day, you kind of, I don't actually write down a specific time, but I just try and find time in that day, because every day is slightly different, which is like, okay, I've got 10 minutes now, I'm going to journal, or I've got half an hour, then I'm going to go for a walk, or whatever, or how it's going to be. Quite often I walk here, I walk to the studio, certainly in the summer. So that gives me my 10,000 steps, half an hour each way or so. So I think, it is about trying to finding ways of systemizing it. Yeah. So it's just something that you do. Yep. And then you'll get the natural compounding benefits of feeling better. Yeah. And I think the other place, because what we're talking about is a really great morning routine and things that will take you through the day, so you feel more positive, you feel better with your teams, etc. And I feel the same. The other place that any one of these three self-care routines come into place is slightly later in the day, when you're a bit tired and you're thinking, I can't wait to get home to open a bottle of wine. I can't wait to get home to have a beer. I can't wait to get home to do X, which is one of those things, certainly if it's alcohol, it's going to affect your sleep, and it means you start off tomorrow on a deficit. And what I found is that, so 5 o'clock is my danger time for drinking, and I have to be, and my approach to that is then to be distracted at that point, either through work, or if I am at home where there's wine anywhere, is to go for a walk or to meditate or distract myself for that 20 minutes before dinner.
Yep.
So you've also shared with me during the week that you've kind of neutralized or reduced alcohol because you improve your sleep.
Yeah.
How have you done that? How have you linked that together? Is it just willpower? Is it a distraction? Like how have you reduced alcohol and everything else during the week?
Yeah, so it's really interesting thinking about it when you're kind of describing. I think it's a self-perpetuating thing. So the more I would have a really stressful day or just a stressful day, at the end of it, the reward was a glass of wine. So you're absolutely right. The 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, it's like feeling kind of overwhelmed by everything that you had, dealt with during the day. The release, the reward is a glass of wine. And that's, in many respects, that's just habit. So, and I wouldn't say I've mastered this. I'm fairly early in my journey of not doing that habit. But I also noticed from the journaling and writing down my sleep score that alcohol impacted sleep 90 to 100% of the time. So I'm like, okay, well, I really value sleep. It's good for my training because you need to recover. It's good because it makes me feel better. So why would I risk like impacting my sleep, which impacts my mood, which impacts everything, by having a glass of wine? So that's become like self-perpetuating. And the better my sleep is, the better my mood is, the better I deal with stress during the day, and the less stressful I feel, so the less I need that glass of wine at the end of the day. So it's just become a self-perpetuating thing of, by examining your what you do in a journal, in a way of actually getting that written down, and thinking about the impact of all the things you do across everything you do, building those habits in, I just feel less drawn to it, which I'm partly sad about as well, because I know that I really enjoy a nice glass of red wine. And I'm at the point now where, I know if I have this glass of wine, it'll impact my sleep, which will make tomorrow worse. But I really like a glass of red wine. So I'm still on the kind of cusp of that. But it's been absolutely self-perpetuating. And the important thing I was trying to get across there is that actually by dropping that habit, I feel less of the stress during the day. I feel more able to deal with it, be better at it, and therefore I don't need it. So it's been super self-perpetuating for me. And that's a breakthrough, because I've been in that habit for more than 10 years, I would say. I feel like right now I've broken it, but I also have this, as you know, I also have this training regime where recovery is super, super important, and so I can use that as a way of enforcing or encouraging myself to have that habit. Just feel great off it right now.
You've articulated that beautifully, because it's the thing I think about a lot, about this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yep. How do you get it?
It all complements each other, and then benefits each other. And then because you have less stress, there's less reason to have a drink to get the stress relief, which then improves your sleep, then improves your next day. But these aren't things that just happen quickly. That happens kind of, a few days at a time. Then it builds up, then the sleep gets better, and you notice your sleep gets better. Yeah. It took me so long to learn. Yeah. It took me so long to learn all of these things and how they link together.
Yeah, and there's absolutely layers of them that reinforce each other. For me, it's like the foundation in the morning. It's knowing that I need the discipline because I want to do well in this competition I've got coming up. So that's kind of out there as a goal. But feeling better, even without that, just feeling better, and reflecting on it and monitoring it so you can course correct is the thing that the book, the journaling, all of those kind of things all come together. So that I see it as very much a layered kind of approach, and that's, I think, in some respects what you need in order to break what I would call is probably a bad habit, even though I really enjoyed it. But certainly feel much better right now.
That's the crazy thing, isn't it? Because I miss it.
Yeah.
When I'm not drinking, I miss it, and I still try to understand the psychology of why do I miss it if it isn't making my life better. Yeah, I'm a better person when I don't drink.
Yep.
But what attracts you to go back to it? I still haven't figured out my own psychology on it. I am still learning and researching, but I know I had a huge breakthrough this year because I went for so long without drinking, and then I found this cycle, which was, wow, it all compounds and it all is self-fulfilling. It's a beautiful thing when you get that, like a truly beautiful thing. It's like the highest state of living that I've ever experienced when I went sort of 4 months with no sugar, no alcohol, no takeaways. You're like just eating the right foods. I say the right food, nutrient dense, actual, chicken and steak and those the real foods, if you will. Just eating that and all adding in the self-care routines, all those things. Just the how I felt, the state of living was just on a different level, something I've never experienced before. The thing I wanted to talk to you about is lifting. So I know you're very passionate about lifting. We chat about this all the time. The interesting thing, I'm still totally confused why their gym is not completely overloaded with people every single morning. Like the benefits are so obvious and so critical to human health, to male health, to build muscle, to female health, to build muscle, to have muscle, to train. I still can't believe. I did some research, and it was about 17% of the UK would go to a gym.
Yeah, that's tiny.
And which is tiny, and also some of the research I found in the book was just this epidemic we have of people being
the overweight
and obese, and by in 10 years time they are estimated 50% of the global population, so 4 billion people, more than 4 billion people, will be either overweight or obese.
Yeah, I
mean, it's just, I can't even comprehend. Anyway, so let's talk about lifting. How did you get into lifting, and why do you lift?
I got into lifting through injuring myself. This will be a theme, through running. So I got really into running, and over COVID, I was running every day to get out and be healthy. And I just found the impact of running started to wear on my body. And so I live very close to the gym that we both go to. And I was like, there's a gym down here. I wonder if I should do that. And I went to the gym when I was in my 20s, with friends. So I needed to stop running as much. So I started twice a week doing a little bit of weight training. And then I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing. It's like I could read like a men's health and pick out like a program. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not really getting anywhere doing this. And so that's when I asked James, both of our coach, what to do some personal training. And that's literally the first time I've ever had a coach for training. First time I've ever done that. And yeah, James kind of introduced me to the science behind powerlifting. And to start off with, we were just getting me better at various techniques and things like that. And then, bless him, a year, probably 2 years ago, he suggested, you should go into a competition. It will give you really good focus and it'll be a new experience. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like I need it. I'm a motivated person. I can get into good habits sometimes. And, I can have the discipline just to come along and enjoy it. And I just love being in the gym and training and feeling good from it. Anyway, so 2 years ago, New Year's resolution, and I know they're a bad thing, but New Year's resolution was, why you should do something to put yourself out of your comfort zone. So I decided, after much persuasion with James, that I would enter myself into an amateur powerlifting competition. So then spent a while training for that, and my first one was last year. So it took me about a year to get into one and get ready for it. And that journey for me, who's never, other than when I was in my, early teens and never competed at sport, was just been really, really positive and really interesting. and has pushed me into positive directions that I never would have thought about before. And it's become an addiction, I guess, like these things. To have that discipline, to keep training with a goal of going to a competition. And the interesting thing about powerlifting is you're not really, so much certainly in my age and my category, you're not really competing head to head with people. So you're going there just to do the best you can in an audience where you'll get judged fairly consistently, so you can get a record of how you've done. And yeah, it's been a really, really positive thing for me, and a really new thing. And it originally started with, you should do something, get yourself out of your comfort zone, do something different, which is why I went for a competition. And yeah, standing in front of a room of 100 people and doing a squat with a heavy weight on your back was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done in my life. And that was actually, at the time, it was nerve-wracking, terrible. Afterwards, I was thinking, yeah, I've got to do this again. So I did another one, and then I got an injury, and now I'm getting ready. I just entered to do a national qualifier in March, and of course I picked up another injury, but we'll deal with that and see what we can do. But yeah, just a really nice hobby for me to get really focused in on, and by that hobby just happens to be something which you can actually deliver great health benefits from doing, other than the injuries.
So if we think about weightlifting and when you first started, what do you think, from when you were running before? I was doing lots of running as well. Do you think are those benefits that you've had over the last number of years from lifting? Now, obviously, there's going to be the health benefits, but like where would you say what are the benefits that you've had from training lifting over the last number of years?
Yeah, it's huge. Actually, and having a competition that you're going towards means that you really have to do your training. Otherwise, you won't do as well as you want to do. But for me, it's probably 3 years into training. It's the first time in my professional career where I've had something which is kind of non-negotiable in my work life does not work. So I've been very hard worker, work long hours for a very long time. So 3 years ago was really the first time where I started having something that wasn't that. So that for me, that's been the really big shift on that is, and it doesn't have to be like weight training. It could be just like doing the running, right? But the weight training, I just get a huge amount of enjoyment doing, as well as the outcome. The outcome's almost kind of secondary to actually enjoying the process of doing the training, and also learning the science behind the training. So getting deep into all of the sources that are available to us now around what's the right nutrition, what's the right rest, what's the right programs that you should be doing, what are the right exercises, techniques. There's a huge amount to it that I don't think you necessarily see on the surface. Someone's doing a bench press. I mean, you're just doing that, right? But the technique to it, to really go as far as you can, there's a lot more to it. And I like that learning aspect of it. I like the variety as well. So James will always come up with different programs, and I enjoy every single time I learn something different. Even after 3 years of doing this, it's a new thing every time. So yeah, it hits on a lot of different levels for me. The satisfaction, the achievement, constantly. It's something you can do where you're in full control of the outcome. I think that's very different in the rest of my life. As you know, being in sales, you like to think you're in control. You do as much as you can to be in control, but ultimately you're dealing with 10, 15, 20 decision makers in something which you do your best to be in control of, and ultimately you're not really in control of that. Whereas this discipline, I'm 100% in control. Other than something that breaks my body, I'm absolutely in control of it, and that's really uplifting, and motivates me, gives me kind of clarity on it, I guess. So yeah, it's been a really fascinating journey, and thanks to James for pushing me into getting into the competitions. That's been the big thing, because I would go to the gym anyhow, but really having a competition to give you that focus, which I never ever would have thought about doing ever without James's encouragement, has been, I've changed my diet, I've changed the way I think about my sleep. All of these things again layer up, all of these things, and that gives me kind of a focal point to really build all of this well-being around meditating. Right, when you're trying to really focus, if I'm lifting really heavy, there's a meditative moment as you build up to doing that. You have to get yourself in the flow state to go and achieve as much as you can. So yeah, it's almost like a combination of all these things plus a midlife crisis.
Or a midlife awakening.
Yes, maybe.
What do you think is the power of having a coach? How important is it? We both share the same coach.
Yeah.
What do you think is the power, the benefit of having a coach?
Yeah, huge, absolutely huge. And you're making me reflect actually on professionally. I don't have a coach right now. I have had in the past. But yeah, huge. His job is specialised on knowing everything there is to do with maximising athletic capability, and so even though his knowledge goes much broader than just the powerlifting stuff that I do, he can program appropriately for you to maximise your outcome. Add variety. If I come up with something, he will always have a new thing to think about that you just could not get to without someone who's dedicated their life to being an expert in that place. So huge, absolutely huge. And he's a great guy. We have a nice natter and enjoy the training. So it's been really impactful. Yeah.
Do you think you could have achieved what you've achieved without a coach?
No way. Wouldn't have even thought about doing it in the first place. Wouldn't have got anywhere near. It's been really like changed my life style. My life from kind of like going to the gym and doing a bit of training to getting engaged in the science behind training, the science behind recovery, the science behind sleep, the techniques, the community that comes with powerlifting. Has quite a community. The people that are enthusiastic about, like Lou, who you've had on this show, the people that are enthusiastic about it are really enthusiastic about it, and that's infectious. So it's been super transformational, that part of my life. Really wouldn't have got there without James. Yeah,
and I love. It's actually off the conversation with Lou. The powerlifting world champion grandmother, as that show is titled. It's off the back of her working with her, having her on the podcast and listening to her journey, which she wanted to do something for herself. She started working with James, and I thought if James can support someone to become a powerlifting grandmother champion, world champion, I thought he's probably qualified to train me.
Oh yeah,
and honestly, that I suppose the message that I'm trying to this is a bit of flattery for James if he listens, but also it's a bit. I suppose the message I would love someone to get from this is you can rock up at the gym and go 4 or 5 times a week and train, or you can go there with a coach and you can do it properly.
Yeah.
Like I trained for a long time without a plan.
Yep.
And I would say I can't really tell you what I got from those years. I would have got healthier, no question, and I would have had a routine, and that was good. But there is a definitive reason why this is the year I've had the best of my health.
Yeah.
Transformationally, gone from 25% body fat all the way down to 11. How I felt the best mentally, physically, and that's down to some very critical guidance that James has given me. And I suppose the point that I'd love people to get is go with someone, go with a trainer, work with someone, because it does make a huge difference. Yeah. But you've got to kind of spend some time to understand the trainer and kind of what their approaches are, and if it aligns to your goals as well. But a great trainer will find a way of support whatever it is you want to achieve from a fitness perspective, because obviously there's all these different types of training. But I feel like some people will go to the gym for a month or two, get disillusioned,
Yeah.
not understand what this is, and then not get the benefit from it. And of course, it's all about consistency, but you need a coach. Is the big message I want someone to take from this. If you can, it's worth the investment.
Yeah, totally. It has been for me. It is an investment, but yeah, it's another kind of non-negotiable. It's just become part of how I want my life to be, right? And James is brilliant with me. And it's the guidance, right? It's someone who can make sure and keep you on the right track, as well as bring their level of expertise. And I think for me, what I get from that is also the variety, because training can be pretty kind of samey if you don't have the ability for someone to turn up and think of new things for you to do and new ways to stretch, what you're doing. And I literally every time we do a program, so every month, I get something new, absolutely something new that I've never done before. And that's what's better in life than having a variety of things to do.
Interesting, very good. So today we've talked about, I'm going to reflect on the conversation we've had, because you're someone who is very successful, you're leading an organization as a CEO, and you've brought in an intentional way these self-care routines so you can feel better, be better, so you can have a better life. And the key thing is here, 6 months ago you weren't doing some of these things, right? And so you've decided to intentionally bring in, you're already meditating, you've intentionally brought in journaling, you started lifting a number of years ago, and now you've added walking to that. And I feel like that's kind of like the fundamentals of your self-care routine. Is there any more that you would add to that, or are they the main things? I think
journaling, walking are the new introductions. Those are very, very impactful. The journaling particularly. Thinking a bit more about what you eat, so diet. Even though I was physically exercising, actually thinking about what you eat is super important as well. And sleep. Yeah,
sleep.
Prioritizing sleep.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about these, I often look at all of these aspects as foundational.
Yeah.
It's like the most basic things you can be doing is getting good sleep.
Yeah.
But it seems like over the years that can be some of the hardest things, is just to go and get good sleep. Now, I talk about sleep extensively in the book because it's so paramountly important. Because if you've ever I don't know if you've ever used a Whoop.
Something similar.
Strap. If you have one alcoholic drink before going to bed, the devastating effect it has on your heart rate variability, it was to the point that I stopped using Whoop at one stage. Because it was almost like if I would check it and then you were having a good heart rate variability score and you'd felt better, and it was really clear. We should, I wish we could have more time to talk about sleep, but it was really clear that my body had not recovered. I'd been to sleep, but your body had not recovered, and therefore you're 25% of yourself the next day. You're nowhere close.
Yeah.
But then you compound that over time.
Yeah.
And it just it's just to try to wrap up really. The things to get yourself feeling the best are that sleep. It's got to start with sleep. It's got to be meditation, journaling, lifting. Sounds like a huge list, right? Seems like a lot of things.
Yep.
Eating nutrient dense single ingredient foods. Are they all the things you're doing? Are they all the right things?
Yeah. There's lots of layers of it. Lots of layers.
It feels like a lot when I just say it like that, but like I know being in it, doing it every day, it's not that onerous.
No, it's not onerous at all. It's a joy. That's the funny thing. All of those things actually are the things that give you great pleasure, great joy and satisfaction. But for me, it's just been about making that habit, making it systematic, making a program whenever you can, of each day, like starting in the right way and getting the things in that give you that better well-being, making time for them. So there might be a lot of things in there, but meditation takes me 10 minutes, walk is half an hour. These aren't massive investments really, but the impact they have, if you can do them regularly, for me it's been really self-perpetuating.
I think that's interesting because when you list them out like that, it's if I was someone who wasn't doing any of those things today, I would think, God, that's a lot.
I don't have time for
where
that.
do I start? How do I get time for that? The
Yeah.
interesting thing is, a lot of these things don't take long. You could literally journal, write things down, and invest 2 minutes to that.
Oh, journaling's like 5 minutes.
So if anyone is not doing those things today, or they're going to take away the first things, I think the first thing you should start doing, in my recommendation, if you're doing no sort of self-care today, the first place you could go to is probably journaling, is my recommendation, just to start writing things down.
Yep.
And if even that feels like too much, then another approach would be just to talk into an iPhone, or talk just to communicate, and answer the question each day, how do you feel? And then leave yourself some space to either talk out the answer into your iPhone, into an app, or however you wish to, or just a blank piece of paper and write down the answer to how do you feel, and then that's a bit of 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever time you want to offer it. And I think the benefits you'll start to get from just that level of self-care, you'll find in a few days you'll start to feel different, you'll start to feel better, and then you start to layer that with, maybe it's right for meditation, maybe I'm going to look at my breakfast and make sure it's more nutritious, I'm going to look at my lunch, I'm going to start reducing alcohol. All these things start to layer on top, and where I end the book on is, if you can start to do these things consistently for an extended period of time, I'm talking about a month, 2 months, maybe even 3 or 4 months, where you reduce sugar, you reduce alcohol, you journal, you will feel like a totally different human being, like light years different as a human being. And the journey to get there, most of it is very low cost or free. Journaling, piece of paper, walking,
Meditation.
go outside, eating slightly better food, eating nutrient dense food, going to bed earlier. It's all relatively free, and you can feel like $1 million really quickly.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dom.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, and it's been great to talk it all through. And we're singing from the same song sheet in some respects around self-care. So it's great to have you coming to the gym each day and seeing you and all that sort of stuff. But it's crazy there's not more people in the gym there with us.
Yeah, it's good because the equipment's free.
Good. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.
There we go. Thank you. That was great.
Thanks, mate.